Hi, my name is Awilda Jimenez. I'm the virtual content specialist teacher from PS 386 in the Bronx. I've created this teacher-facing video in partnership with Maria Friedland from the Division of Multilingual Learners. This teacher-facing video focuses on the grade 4, unit 3, days 17. So the part 2 of the lesson entitled Choosing Sides, Patriot, Loyalist, or Neutral. Our focus question is, what events led to the war with Great Britain? In part 2, we're thinking about the unique perspectives of Blacks in colonial America on the Patriot and Loyalist causes. Our lesson objective is to explore hypothetical scenarios and secondary sources to explain how a person's identity in colonial America impacted their perspective on the Patriot and Loyalist causes. So this is just vocabulary that was reviewed during the introduction portion of the lesson, as well as in part 1 of the lesson in this series. Again, the big ideas that students should take away are that enslaved Blacks or enslaved African Americans had different reasons for being a patriot, loyalist, or remaining neutral. And the driving force behind their decision making was whether or not the decisions they made would lead to their freedom. Because as students already know from previous units, if you were a slave, you were not seen as equal or free, no matter who you were in society. And just like in previous lessons, students should still hold on to the idea that who you are and your experiences play a role in which side you're going to choose and your opinions. Okay, again, here's the timeline of events, and the intolerable acts were enforced as a direct response to the Tea Parties in Boston, Philadelphia, and New York City. And from the introduction portion of the lesson, enslaved Africans in the 13 colonies had different opinions, right? If they were neutral, they wanted to wait and see what happens. They really didn't have an opinion about a war between British soldiers and the colonists. If they were fighting for the Patriot, on the Patriot side, they were hoping that getting rid of British rule and having a new nation would lead to their freedom. If they fought on the Loyalist side, they were promised their freedom if they fought on the Loyalist side with the British Army and pledged their loyalty to the King of England. Students will, during independent work, will be should be in heterogeneous groups because they're going to be analyzing the perspectives of 3 enslaved Africans, William Lee, James Lafayette, and Harry Washington. They're going to be reading and analyzing a timeline. It's important for them to be working together. There are guiding questions that are posed that would help them access the grade level content and discuss their ideas before completing the activity. They can listen to the audio versions of the timeline. That's also a scaffold that's included. Okay, so before each timeline, there is an image of the person we're going to be looking at. Here's William Lee. Okay, he was George Washington's slave. And this presentation being done on Pear Deck, which is linked to Google Classroom and created using Google Slides. So there's a lot of information on the timeline. Students should be instructed to focus on what's the information, what are the words or phrases that help me understand who William Lee is, what was William Lee's job, and based on that information, would he be a patriot, a loyalist, or remain neutral, and why? Right? So here are the guiding questions that students should stop, think, and discuss and come to a consensus and then jot their ideas on this chart, which is on Google Slide, but you can also upload a similar chart like this on Padlet and have people post, students post their answers, or on Pear Deck and have the answers populate. Or it could also be on a Google Doc where groups of students log in and type in their responses. Any of those would work to support students in understanding how to identify whether an enslaved African or an enslaved Black person would be fighting for the Patriots, the Loyalists, or stay out and remain neutral. Okay, so the same process goes for James Lafayette and then Harry Washington. Okay, so this is the independent work that's suggested on the slide that everyone gets. The questions are similar to what the students are doing on Pear Deck. The only difference is that there's a section for students to jot their own questions. So that's up to you whether you want to have students do all of the slides, or keep the guiding questions on Pear Deck so that they can discuss with their groups. And then instead of jotting the information on a chart like this, they just jot it on the Google slide that was already made for this lesson.